And 3, 2, 1.
Parkland survivor David Hogg gets the royal treatment from CNN. Social media stocks take a tumble. And President Trump attacks Amazon.com. So that's awesome. I'm Ben Shapiro. This is The Ben Shapiro Show. We have a lot to get to today, but before we get to any of it, first I want to say thank you to our sponsors over at Birch Gold. So, by now you know, okay, the stock market's up and down and up and down and up and down and all around, and that's why you should at least have part of your portfolio in precious metals. I know I certainly do. And the folks that I trust with precious metals investing are the folks over at Birch Gold Group. They have a long-standing track record of continued success, thousands of satisfied clients, countless five-star reviews, an A-plus rating with the Better Business Bureau. Right now, you can contact Birch Gold Group and request a free information kit on physical precious metals. It's a comprehensive 16-page kit that shows how gold and silver can protect your savings and how you can legally move your IRA or 401k out of stocks and bonds and into a precious metals IRA. This is great for a hedge against inflation. It's great for a hedge against stock market volatility. To get your no-cost, no-obligation kit, go to birchgold.com/Ben. That's birchgold.com/Ben. Again, when it comes to my own investment strategy, I do have a lot of money in the stock market. I do have some money in bonds, but I also have some money in precious metals. And the folks over at Birch Gold, they are top of the industry for a reason. And the reason is people trust them. Again, they have all those five-star ratings from people. I've worked with them. They're folks that I trust. Check out birchgold.com/Ben, birchgold.com/Ben. Get that comprehensive free 16-page kit on gold and silver. Ask all your questions and then invest with my friends over at Birch Gold when you're ready to do some precious metals investing. Okay, so the fallout over the Parkland shooting continues, and the fallout from the media continues. So we've been told this story, which is that all the Parkland survivors have innate moral authority and can speak on any issue without any criticism. Now, I have said over and over and over on this program, listen to every episode since Parkland, I've said these kids have a right to speak out. Of course they have a right to speak out. This is America. When I was 17 years old, I had a syndicated columnist. But this comes with a caveat. The caveat is you will get criticized. People will criticize you. People will pick apart what you are saying publicly, especially when you're the type of person who goes on national television and suggests that all those who disagree with you are actually akin to child murderers. If you do that, it turns out people get pissed off. Okay, but the media have decided that any criticism of these kids whatsoever, not their right to speak, not their expertise, right? If you criticize the stuff they are saying, if you say what they are saying is wrong, or if you say, I don't think that they are conducting themselves properly publicly, or if you say that sort of stuff, then you are a hater. Then you are brutal. Then you are doing something terrible. Okay, I don't understand why this should be the case. Really, in public life, everyone gets criticized. It's part of the way this works. And when you're speaking on issues of deep public importance, fundamental issues to American liberty and, frankly, human liberty, like should you have the right to keep and bear arms, then passions are going to run high. And not only are passions going to run high, people have not only every right, but every responsibility to speak out against perspectives that they think are bad. And I think a lot of what these kids have been saying is wrong, non-factual. I think some of what they've been saying is immoral when they suggest that Marco Rubio is akin to the shooter in Parkland. And when they say that Dana Lash is a murderer with blood on her hands, this stuff is disgusting. And not only do I have every right, I have every moral obligation to speak up against it because it's gross. Okay, but that's not how the media have treated this. So CNN tweeted this out about David Hogg. David Hogg is, of course, the guy who's probably become the most famous of these Parkland survivors. Emma Gonzalez is the other one who's really gained a lot of credibility. She's very good at media. Emma Gonzalez, I think, really knows how to handle herself. David Hogg, not so much. He thinks that the sort of Che Guevara attitude, the fist in the air thing that you're seeing here, is what's going to win the day, that anger wins the day. Emma Gonzalez understands that anger doesn't win the day. She's much better at this than David Hogg. Just from a purely political point of view, if you're going to pick one of those two people to run for office, there's no doubt in my mind you run Emma Gonzalez, not David Hogg. In any case, the media have decided that David Hogg's voice is deeply important and that he should be booked on every show. So he's been on CNN 1,000 times at this point. And this is what CNN tweeted out yesterday, quote, "A brief history of how Parkland survivor David Hogg keeps schooling lawmakers on social media." Yeah, that sounds like objective journalism to me. Okay, we here at the Daily Wire, we're not objective. So when we say that somebody is schooling somebody else, you can assume that we're conservative. And we're saying that a conservative is schooling a leftist. Why? Because we are a conservative website, and we make that obvious and known. But CNN is supposed to be objective. Does that sound like an objective headline to you? A brief history of how Parkland survivor David Hogg keeps schooling lawmakers on social media? Of course not. Well, the big controversy that's broken out over David Hogg in the last 24 hours concerns Laura Ingraham. So Laura retweeted a piece that was on our website. The piece that was on our website about David Hogg being rejected by certain colleges originally appeared at TMZ. So the story did not originate with us. And it really only originated with David Hogg because he was interviewed by TMZ somewhere and he started discussing which colleges he had gotten into. So we begin with what David Hogg actually said about not getting into colleges. And there are a couple ways of reading this, and I want to be fair to him. So here's what the clip said.
it's not been too great for me and some of the other members of the movement, like Ryan Deitch. We got rejected from Cal State. We got rejected from UCLA, and I got rejected from UCLA and UCSD. So it's been kind of annoying having to deal with that and everything else that's been going on. But at this point, I was, we're changing the world. We're too busy. Right now, it's too hard to focus on that. It is absolutely disappointing. But at this point, we're already changing the world. If colleges want to support us in that, great. If they don't, doesn't matter. We're still going to change the world.
So his comments here could have been read in a couple of different ways. The part that you see the slash through, the part where that's cut out there, is where David Hogg says, listen, a lot of people don't actually get into colleges, right? It's not super unpredictable. A lot of people in my class didn't get into a lot of colleges. There are a lot of people who can't afford to go to college. All of that is true. And for the first 2/3 of this comment, I'm actually in agreement. David Hogg is handling this with class. That last comment there where he says that if colleges want to help us in our crusade, great. If not, then we're still changing the world. This is where I have a bit of trouble, because the implication is where he is, and listen, he's speaking off the cuff, so maybe it's just a mistake. But the implication of what he's saying is the reason that colleges are not letting him in is not because he wasn't qualified. They're not letting him in because of his activism, which of course would be incredibly silly. Right? There is no question that the top leaders of this movement will end up going to fantastic graduate schools, specifically because they are top leaders of this movement. Right? Political activism on the left is not going to come back and bite you. Right? It's the ultimate extracurricular activity for most college administrators. My guess is that if he had sent in his applications right now, as opposed to 6 months ago, then he would be admitted to a lot of these schools. But he's getting these rejections now or 2 weeks ago in the middle of all of this. It's not like they were considering him 5 minutes ago. They were considering him 4 months ago. They probably don't even remember seeing his application, because places like UCLA get tens of thousands of applications every year. So in any case, Laura Ingraham tweets out this story, and we covered it pretty straight. It was pretty objective coverage, or at least it wasn't politically charged. And Laura tweeted this out. She tweeted, David Hogg rejected by 4 colleges to which he applied and whines about it, dinged by UCLA with a 4.1 GPA, totally predictable given acceptance rates. Hey, I don't think that this is particularly awful. Anything that Laura says here is particularly awful. Do I think that it's fair to say that he's whining about it? I think it's maybe half fair or a quarter fair. I don't totally agree with Laura's take on David Hogg's comments here. But the way David Hogg responds is what's really important here. So David Hogg responds to this relatively mild critique by saying that they should boycott Laura Ingraham. Right? So he starts immediately, like within minutes, tweeting out Laura Ingraham's advertisers and saying that all these places should drop Laura Ingraham. Why? For the great sin of having suggested that he whined about not getting into college. Okay, she didn't say anything racist. She didn't say anything sexist. She didn't say David Hogg is a piece of crap. She didn't insult him personally. Like really, she was insulting his comments, right? The things that he said. He is part of the public discourse. And this is demonstrative of exactly how this game is being played now by the left. They've trot out a bunch of kids. The kids have every right to speak. Again, for the 1,000th time, the kids have every right to speak. They trot out a bunch of kids. And then if you disagree with the kids, they suggest you are attacking the kids personally. And then based on that, they say you shouldn't be on the air. And this is what David Hogg is now doing. Okay, David Hogg does not have, any sort of moral impetus to call for a full boycott of Laura Ingraham based on that tweet. She got ratioed pretty hard on Twitter, meaning that more people replied to her tweet than actually retweeted it, which is very often taken on Twitter as a sign of it was a bad tweet or something. Okay, that's fine. But boycotts? Really? And if we're really at the point in this country where you say something that's even mildly controversial and there are calls for boycotts, then we're not going to have a common culture anymore. We really aren't. Because I promise you, the right is just as capable of this as the left. The right has stayed away from it. In fact, I used to run an organization called Truth Revolt. It was a branch of the David Horowitz Freedom Center. And when I ran Truth Revolt, one of our goals was to provide a mutually assured destruction. The idea was if the left was going to use boycott tactics in order to knock conservatives off the air, then we would use boycott tactics to knock leftists off the air. And then everybody would learn that boycott tactics are bad. That boycott tactics end up knocking voices off the air or destroying the profit margins for shows that are controversial. I think David Hogg should be able to speak out however he wants. I don't think that advertisers should be boycotted for praising David Hogg. I don't think any of those things. But there's this attempt to use market forces to club people with whom you politically disagree, not because they're racist or brutal or horrible, but just because you disagree. And if that becomes our politics, the entire market basis for political discourse in the country goes away, and that is going to have a significant weakening impact on the kind of voices that you're allowed to hear. And meanwhile, the media continues to portray David Hogg as some sort of apolitical, above the fray figure. He's been anything but apolitical. He's been anything but above the fray. So do I think that Laura's tweet was completely correct? No. Do I think it's boycott worthy? You got to be kidding me. You've got to be kidding me. And the Washington Post, I'm on their email list, and the Washington Post emailed this out as their lead today. Legitimately, as their lead. They emailed out the Laura Ingraham story. that this was some sort of brutal, terrible thing that had just happened, that Laura Ingraham is deserving of all of this. It's just silliness. But again, it's not particularly shocking because they've done this against virtually every major talk show host. Speaking of which, big announcement for the show, and I might as well make it now. Okay, so, you listen to the show on podcast. That means that you're listening to it probably on your phone or on your computer. But a lot of older Americans, a lot of people who don't know how podcasts work, they listen to talk radio just disproportionately with regards to how the numbers work. Well, now they can actually listen to the podcast, which is really exciting. Westwood One is partnering with us on this project, so this is really cool. And Westwood One is going to be putting this podcast on air, WABC in New York. It's going to be putting it on air in Chicago, in KBC Los Angeles. And it's going to be putting us on in Atlanta. It's going to be putting us on in Seattle. It's going to be putting us on WMAL in Washington, D.C. There are a bunch of stations that are going to be putting this show on the air. It's Salt Lake City. It's just fantastic. It's just fantastic. And I cannot wait to bring this message that we promote every day to a broader audience. That's really cool. So tell your parents that if they haven't heard of the show, all they're going to have to do is turn on their radio and they'll be able to hear the show every evening, every afternoon on their local radio station pretty soon. So that's pretty exciting stuff. And we are really excited to announce it. And we're thankful to Westwood One for giving us the opportunity because it really is pretty awesome. Well, in just a second, I want to tell you about something else that the media has tweeted out that is just inane and demonstrates, again, that they don't know anything about how statistics work. But first, I want to say thank you to our sponsors over at Helix Sleep. So, there's nobody on the planet who's built like you or sleeps like you, and that's why you need a mattress that is customized to your specific height, weight, and sleep preferences. The way it works, you go over to helixsleep.com, and when you go to helixsleep.com/Ben, you take a sleep quiz. They ask you how you like to sleep. Is it on your side? Is it on your back? What's your weight? What's your body type? Do you like the mattress to be firm or soft? Do you like it to be heat absorbent or do you like it to be very cool? And then they send you a personalized mattress in the mail. It comes in the mail, you unwrap the box, it inflates right in front of you, you pop it right on your bed frame, and you're ready to go. It's just fantastic, and the quality is fantastic. You can have the best sleep of your life on a Helix Sleep mattress. Go to helixsleep.com, fill out that 2-minute sleep quiz, and they will design your custom mattress. They can even make the mattress so that it has 2 different sides that feel different for the different halves of the couple. In 2018, they've even taken the customized sleep to the next level with the Helix Pillow. These all-new pillows are fully adjustable, so you can achieve perfect comfort regardless of sleep position or body type. You've never really appreciated a good pillow until you've spent a lot of time at hotels. I know why it is that hotel pillows are always made of just fluff. Whereas you can put your head on it and it goes directly down to the mattress, and then you feel like you're suffocating. The Helix Sleep pillows are the opposite. They are fantastic. They have thousands of 5-star reviews. And right now, if you go to helixsleep.com/Ben, you get $125 toward your mattress order. That's helixsleep.com/Ben for $125 off your mattress order. Again, helixsleep.com/Ben. Use that /Ben to get $125 off your mattress order and let them know that we sent you. It really is fantastic. Okay, so speaking of stupidity in the media, again, just quick final note on the Laura Ingraham boycott tactic here. The same media that's promoting that tactic is vulnerable to that tactic should they step out of line in any particular way. You're living in a very dangerous era for the future of the media when audiences are being pushed to boycott particular outlets because of the viewpoints of those outlets. Barring full-on Nazis or full-on racists, I think that we all ought to take a step back and just say, listen, people ought to be able to watch what they want to watch. You should be able to, even if you want to watch Nazi crap, you should be able to watch it. I just won't patronize your advertisers. But Laura Ingraham is not a Nazi. And the attempt to lump all political speech into one bag that I don't like it, therefore it's Nazi-esque, is really quite ridiculous. Okay, speaking of quite ridiculous, I just had to comment on this Jezebel tweet. So Jezebel is a feminist outlet, and a couple of days ago, there was a tweet that came out from Planned Parenthood in some podunk town in which Planned Parenthood tweeted, "We need a Disney princess who is transgender. We need a Disney princess who has had an abortion." Okay, and I said, well, what we really need is a Disney princess who uses her royal authority to defund Planned Parenthood. Let's start with that. But Jezebel has to defend that, of course, because we need to indoctrinate children about abortion and transgenderism and same-sex marriage. We need a Disney princess who's a lesbian. Right? This is the new push, by the way, for Ilsa in Frozen, is that in the sequel, they should give Ilsa a girlfriend. Because there's nothing better than teaching 3-year-old children who like the movie Frozen because they like Olaf, that lesbianism is on equal moral par and societal value with heterosexuality. Yeah, it's perfect, because kids at 3 should know all about sex. That's really important. So Jezebel tweeted something out that was even stupider yesterday. They tweeted out, statistically, at least 2 Disney princesses have had abortions. Okay, and the reason that Jezebel says this, of course, is because they say that statistically speaking, a certain percentage of people in the United States, certain percentage of women have had abortions, and that means that a certain percentage of Disney princesses, by extension, must have had abortions. Here's what the piece says. They said, we need many kinds of Disney princesses, according to an extremely fun meme whooshing around the net. We need a Disney princess who jewels. I don't even know what that is. We need a Disney princess who is falling asleep, calling a cab, having a smoke, taking a drag. We need a Disney princess with chronic UTIs. We also, according to Planned Parenthood affiliate, need a Disney princess who has gotten an abortion. Statistically, like 2.5 already have. Right, so then they say, according to the Guttmacher Institute, 23.7% of women in the United States will have had an abortion by age 45. According to the official Disney Princess website, there are 11 official Disney princesses: Belle, Rapunzel, Ariel, Tiana, Snow White, Cinderella, Aurora, Merida, Pocahontas, Jasmine, and Mulan. That means statistically around 2.5 of these strong women have gotten abortions and aren't telling you about it because of a national culture of shame and misogyny. Let me just say something to Planned Parenthood and Jezebel. You people are so unbelievably dumb. This is not how statistics work. If 23.7% of women in the United States will have had an abortion by age 45, a number that I think is probably very high, but let's say that that's true. If that number is true, that still would not suggest that Disney princesses, were they real people and not fictional characters, would have had abortions. Okay, first of all, they're fake. I know I have to keep emphasizing this for folks on the left. Certain things are real. Certain things are pretend. Certain things that are pretend have certain cultural significance. It's why we talked about Roseanne, because people were saying the cultural significance of Roseanne is something. It's why we talked about Black Panther. People saying Black Panther had cultural significance. Okay, fair enough. But you want to argue that Disney princesses have had abortions. Disney princesses don't exist in real life. They're not real people. And even if they did exist in real life, two of them would not have had abortions. Because statistically speaking, Disney princesses are incredibly wealthy. Many of them lived hundreds of years ago in a different universe. So that's like saying that 23.7% of women in the U.S. will have had an abortion. That means that in our office, there are probably 10 women who work in our office, in this office. That means that 2 of them have had an abortion. That's not how statistics work, gang. That's like saying, it is the equivalent of saying that every family in America has an average of 2.4 children. That means that every family in America has 2 whole children and a 0.4 of a child. Statistically, an average does not mean that each individual is a member of the average. So stupid. But again, stupid rules the day. Okay, so now I want to get into some tech news. So the reason I'm going to get into tech news is because there's a lot going on this score. Tech stocks have been dumping. I mean, they've really been dropping pretty precipitously in the last few days. A lot of that is specifically because of all of the hubbub surrounding Facebook and social media, which I'm going to get to in just a second. According to Reuters, fund managers have begun to ditch so-called FANG stocks that powered the U.S. stock market to record highs in January and are slowly rotating into commodity-related shares and other value stocks, which typically outperform in late-cycle recoveries. Portfolio managers holding shares of Facebook, Amazon, Netflix, Google parent Alphabet Inc., that's Google, say they are increasingly concerned that the data scandal that has sent shares of Facebook down nearly 15% year to date, will spill over into all of FANG stocks, imperiling the broad market's momentum at a time when there are no clear companies or sectors to take their place. On Tuesday, an index which tracks the FANG stocks, along with 6 other mega-cap technology stocks, tumbled 6.3%, the biggest decline since September 2014. Google was slightly positive. Amazon dropped 4%. Netflix fell 5%. A portfolio manager said there are legitimate concerns over the business models of these companies, and I expect that they will be ironed out in legislation. So this, of course, is talking specifically about Facebook. So I want to talk about a couple of things that are great about technology, and then I want to talk about a thing that is very bad about the future of technology in the United States, particularly with regard to the distribution of our news. So we begin with President Trump ripping on Amazon today. So President Trump decided to go after Amazon today. Amazon has been his bugaboo for a couple of reasons. One is because it's owned by Jeff Bezos. Jeff Bezos also owns the Washington Post. The Washington Post has not been friendly to Trump. Therefore, Trump says the Amazon Washington Post. His suggestion is that Amazon uses its profits to subsidize the Washington Post. There is no statistical truth to this. This is something that is made up in Trump's mind. It is just not true. It's not factually true. Now, you may think Jeff Bezos is a schmuck. That's fine. But Amazon is a phenomenal company. Amazon is the best company in America. Amazon is just unbelievable. It's running other companies out of business, not because it's evil and brutal, but because they are incredibly good at what they do. You never have to worry about what to remember for the grocery store. You just order stuff. I use Amazon nearly every day. I believe I was one of their first 1,000 Prime users because it started off as a used book company. And so I used to buy used books from there all the time. I still do. Amazon is just a phenomenal company. So Trump decides to rip them on the web. So here's what he says. He says, I have stated my concerns with Amazon long before the election. Unlike others, they pay little or no taxes to state and local governments, use our postal system as their delivery boy, causing tremendous loss to the U.S., and are putting many thousands of retailers out of business. Okay, so Amazon's shares were up about 2% before the president's tweet, and then it fell about 2.6% after the market opened. I'm sure it will recover pretty quickly. Okay, this is a really stupid tweet. And just be frank about this. This is economically illiterate. First of all, Amazon does pay sales tax in states that require it to pay sales tax. So in California, I pay a sales tax on my Amazon products. I wish I didn't. Okay, but states do require that if you buy a product in California from Amazon, that you are going to pay the sales tax that is equivalent to what you would pay at the store. So I pay a sales tax on products that are shipped to me in California. And I'm not sure why Trump is complaining about Amazon using the postal system. You know what is keeping the postal system existent? Amazon. No one uses the post office anymore because everyone uses email. Okay, bulk mail has gone down. When people send packages and they want to make sure that it gets there, they use FedEx. So Amazon is using the post office because the post office is subsidized and because the post office is cheap. And it is because they are doing that that the post office has any business at all. In fact, little known fact about Amazon. Have you ever gotten an Amazon package where it's like you ordered a thing of toothpaste and it comes in a box that's like half the size of your house? And you're always wondering why is it that the box is totally out of proportion to the item that is inside the box? That is because Amazon has come up with such a science of this thing that when they deliver stuff to you, they actually have slotted every box into the truck in the most efficient possible way. So they know that they need to fill up every piece of space in the truck so that the things aren't bouncing around back there. So they will ship you things with weird sized boxes because it is most efficient to ship it that way. Several states, according to CNBC, say that the online retailers should have to collect sales tax even in those states where companies don't have a physical presence. The Supreme Court ruled in 1992 that states couldn't collect sales taxes gathered by mail-order catalog companies unless the firms had a physical presence in the state. Obviously, Amazon does collect sales. I mean, listen to this. Amazon collects sales tax from consumers in 45 states and the District of Columbia. So what is Trump even talking about here? What is he even talking about here? Okay, there are certain economists who say that if Amazon started to, I mean, the truth is what Amazon is eventually going to do here is they are just going to substitute their own shipping for the post office, and the post office will have no business. So the fact that Amazon is using the post office right now is really a temporary measure. People think that Amazon is going to become the largest single shipper in the United States and become a shipping company, basically. So Axios is reporting that Trump wants to go after Amazon. It's really dumb. According to this report from Axios, people have explained to them that the post office that Trump's view of the post office is not even accurate. The U.S. Postal Service is not owned or operated by the government. It's an establishment of the executive branch, so it's controlled by presidential appointees and acts as a government agencies. And again, Amazon's business is the only thing keeping the post office afloat. So again, Amazon is a great piece of technology. Why are we attacking that? I'm going to tell you another great piece of technology that people are ignoring, and it's being attacked by leftists and some people who don't understand economics as well. First, I want to say thank you to our sponsors over at Ring.com. Speaking of fantastic technology, Ring.com is a fantastic technology. It ensures that you and your family stay safe. Today, over 1 million people use the amazing Ring video doorbell to help protect their homes. Ring knows home security begins at the front door. It does not end there, so they have the Ring floodlight cam as well, extending security to the rest of your house. The floodlight cam is a motion-activated camera and floodlight. It connects right to your phone with HD video, two-way audio. It lets you know the moment anyone steps on your property. So what's really awesome about this is that it rings directly to your phone no matter where you are. I can be across the country and know who's at my front door at my house. You can see and speak to visitors, even set off an alarm right from your phone. Right? So I can actually set off the alarm, scare off the intruders from my phone. Ring Floodlight offers the ultimate in in-home security with high visibility floodlights, a powerful HD camera. It puts security directly in your hands. And right now, you save up to $150 off a Ring of Security kit when you go to ring.com/Ben. That's ring.com/Ben. Again, ring.com/Ben. Use that /Ben so they know that we sent you. Ring helps keep my house safe. I've recommended it for months and years here. There's a reason for that, and it's not just because they're an advertiser. Ring is fantastic. Now, people always ask me, do you actually use? Yes, we use Ring at our house. It is on our front door. It is tremendous. Ring.com/Ben to get $150 off that Ring of Security kit. Ensure that your house, your family is safe, even when you yourself are not at home or out of town. Okay, now, speaking of great technology that is being ripped by the left, right now there's an effort underway by a lot of folks on the left to go after Uber and Lyft. This has happened particularly in leftist jurisdictions. So in California, for a long time, there was a rule that ride-sharing apps could not actually go to the airport because they wanted you to use cabs instead. It was basically a government-guaranteed monopoly. In the city of New York, there are heavy restrictions on Uber and Lyft. In the city of Seattle, there were heavy restrictions on Uber and Lyft. But there is an upside, and this demonstrates a point that I've been making about the free market for a long time. The great thing about the free market is that the free market actually cuts against racism. It cuts against discrimination in virtually all forms because the only color that the free market cares about is the color green. So there's a tweet from a guy named Matthew Cherry, who is a black filmmaker for the NFL, and he was tweeting about a New York Post story. So the New York Post story said ride-sharing apps are driving New York City cabbies into financial ruin. This was another one of these lamentation pieces about how all these new technologies are hurting people who are already in business, and what are we going to do about the cabbies and all the rest of this nonsense. The New York Post says New York City cabbies are being driven to the edge of financial ruin and despair as ride-hail apps like Uber and Lyft continue to take their customers. Last week, in the fourth driver suicide since November, Nicanor Ochizor, 65, hanged himself inside his Queens home, depressed over the plummeting value of the taxi medallion he owned that was supposed to finance his home and looming retirement. The value plunged from $1 million to around $180,000 over the last 5 years. Last month, longtime black car driver Doug Shifter shot himself in front of City Hall over money troubles. 2 livery drivers killed themselves in recent months, one of whom, Danilo Castillo, pointedly wrote his suicide note on the back of a taxi and limousine commission summons. By Rivi Desai is the executive director of the New York Taxi Workers Alliance, and wrote that we've seen this building over the past 3 years in particular. The financial crisis is crushing enough, but it's the political silence that's destroying people. The number of for-hire cars in circulation has swelled to about 100,000. About 2/3 of those are Uber drivers. The number of yellow cabs is capped by the city at 13,587. Once again, demonstrating that government-guaranteed monopolies are garbage, and the minute that those monopolies end, those companies go out of business. Right? It's not the fault of these cab drivers. I feel terrible for the cab drivers who spent their years investing in a product that the government had basically guaranteed, only to have the government pull the rug out from under them. But that's not enough for me to say that we should get rid of a technology that's helping lots of people. And here's the point. So Matthew Cherry tweets out, quote, "Never had an Uber or Lyft drive right past me and refused to pick me up because I was black." Right? This is accurate. Okay, this is accurate. There's an article by Rob George in the New York Post just a couple of years ago saying exactly this, that one of the things that's amazing about Uber and Lyft is that there is no driver discrimination. So this has been a serious problem in New York City for a very long time, is that taxi cabs do not go to outlying areas. It's almost impossible to get a taxi cab out there. And if they go into heavily black or Hispanic neighborhoods, they just won't pick people up because they are afraid that they'll pick somebody up who will attempt to rob the cab. Right? This has been a serious problem for a long time. It is true they've done studies. It's true for drivers of all colors. So it has nothing to do with white drivers avoiding black areas. Black drivers also avoid black areas. And what this demonstrates, and here's the amazing thing. Okay, so what kind of discrimination is that? So as I discussed last week with regard to a New York Times article in which there was a claim that America was widely and terribly racist, Thomas Sowell has a model of how to think about discrimination that's really useful. Right? He thinks about discrimination in 3 ways. There's open discrimination, like I'm a racist, I hate black people, and therefore I'm not going to pick up a black guy if I'm driving a cab. Right? That's open racism, obviously morally wrong. Then there's discrimination type number 1. He calls that discrimination 2, like the clearest form of discrimination. Then there is discrimination 1A. Right? That is, I discriminate amongst the people I choose to date. Right? I discriminate amongst the people I choose to hire. I look at behavior and then I make a decision on an individualized basis. That's the kind of discrimination we all like and we all use every day. Then there is something in between. It's what Sowell calls discrimination 1B. Discrimination 1B is I don't have any data other than the group data. Right? The only data I have as a taxi driver in New York City is that if I go into this particular area and I pick up a person of this particular race, I am more likely to be robbed. And because the crime rates in New York are racially disproportionate. And so if I have a choice between driving into a middle of a high crime black area and picking up a black guy, or driving down to the Wall Street district and picking up a white guy in a suit, I'm pick up the white guy in the suit. Now, is that a form of racism? Kind of and kind of not. It's a form of making individual judgment based on group data. But that's not quite the same thing as I think all black people are incapable of being picked up for a ride, right? That's people using data as a substitute for lack of individual data. Now, here's where Uber solves this problem. It's not that Uber drivers are better people. It's not that Lyft drivers are better people. Okay, the reason that drivers were not picking up black folks in New York is because 1, there was a guaranteed monopoly, which meant that you wouldn't lose your job if you did this. 2, that everybody in the monopoly had the same rules and pay. So it wasn't like you gained money by going out of your way to pick up the black guy in the black neighborhood. There was no competitive advantage to that. You were already a member of an exclusive club and you were going to make a certain amount of money per year. Then the market opened things up. And what do Uber and Lyft do? Right? Have you ever used Uber and Lyft? When you use Uber and Lyft, one of the things they do for drivers, same thing that you do when you're a passenger. If you get a notice from Uber or Lyft that somebody is going to pick you up, 2 things pop up: a picture of the person and a number of stars. Right? The stars rate whether this person is a good driver or a bad driver. And drivers rate customers. So it rates whether a customer is a good customer or a bad customer. This does what Sowell talks about. It overcomes the burden of data. So if the only data that you had as a taxi driver in New York is that certain races are statistically more likely to be involved in crime than other races, And then you may not be making an individual judgment out, this particular black guy, that this particular black guy is going to rob me, but you make a group judgment based on the only data that's available to you. Uber makes it individual, right? Uber individualizes. So, number one, it creates a competitive advantage for you to go into what would be higher risk crime areas. Because if nobody else is doing it, you can pick up a lot of money by going into those areas, right? You can now outcompete the cabbies. That's number one. And number two, you have user-specific data. So if I look and I see that there's a 1-star rating on a guy because last time he was in a car, he crapped in the back seat, I'm not going to pick that guy up. But if I see there are a bunch of 5-star ratings, I can pretty well guarantee that the guy actually isn't a criminal. This is why the market is fantastic. So what's hilarious is that a lot of people on the left don't understand why it is that Uber and Lyft don't discriminate against black folks in New York. The answer is not, again, that cab drivers in New York are evil, terrible racists and Uber drivers are wonderful people. That is not what, or that Lyft drivers are wonderful people, right? That is not the case. Here is the case. The case is that the incentive structure changes. The amount of data has changed. And this is what technology does. This is what technology is good for. Technology is good for providing you additional data so you can make better decisions. And with those better decisions, you can now go out and live a better, less discriminatory life. Right? That's where tech really comes in, and that's what makes tech great. Is that it is value neutral, but it gives you more data. Okay, remember those two things, right? Value neutral and gives you more data. Because in 1 second, we're going to get to the problem with some of our social media with regard to the news. But first, you're going to have to go over to dailywire.com and subscribe. For $9.99 a month, you can get a subscription to Daily Wire. When you do, you get the rest of this show live, the rest of Klavan's show live, the rest of Noel's show live. You get to be part of the mailbag, which we are doing tomorrow, just before Passover and Easter. So very exciting mailbag, which we subscribe now, ask us a question. And you can log in tomorrow, and while you're watching the show, ask us questions live that we will answer for you, which is pretty awesome. Also, if you get the annual subscription, you get this. The very greatest in all beverage vessels. I have praised this to the skies because it is of the heavens. It is magnificent. Gaze upon it, and your soul shall be uplifted. Okay, and you get to bring it home and caress it and drink from it each and every night when you get the annual subscription for $99 a year, cheaper than the monthly subscription. So make sure that you get that. If you just want to listen later for free, iTunes, SoundCloud, YouTube, please subscribe, please leave us a review, and of course, tell all of your friends who are listening to Talk Radio to tune into our shows, which will be syndicated on Monday, which is really exciting. We are the largest, fastest growing conservative show in the nation.